Hey, I have a question for you. What if you found as a young child growing up that adults came to you for advice on their life? What if you later on in life experience a number of near death experiences and realize that you actually had an angelic connection to the world and had some beautiful light to shed on the world? And eventually you become a shaman connected to indigenous communities around the world. I'll tell you what, this is an exciting show. I'm Carl Gruber, host of this podcast, World Awakenings. Stick around because I have an amazing lady as my guest today, right here on World Awakenings.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Okay, let's get right to it. This is the podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, episode number 110. I'm your host, Carl Gruber, and this is your show for all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. Now, before we head off to today's show, I would love if you took a moment to click that subscribe button and leave a like and a comment. With that, let me introduce our awesome guest for today, Roxanne Chaput. Since she was a little girl, she felt enlightenment in her soul that she was directly connected to the angelic lineages. She has experienced the channeling of universal light languages and teachings of wisdom throughout the eventful journeys that have transpired throughout her life. Now, she's a life coach, a celestial and generational earth shaman, which are the modalities that she offers in collaboration with the ancient wisdom and teachings of the Indigenous Medicine Men and Women, such as the ancient traditional medicines and energy healing and teachings of Lemurian Reiki, and her direct connection to the light. Whoa, wow, that is awesome. So welcome, Roxanne, welcome.
Thank you, Carl, for having me. It's such an honor to be in your space today.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you. I already like you. And with that, you fascinate me. Everything this is the first time we've met face to face, but everything I've read about you fascinate me. Besides being a life coach, you are described as a luminary and a celestial and generational earth shaman. What exactly are these abilities that you have?
Right. So the luminary is really being a conscious luminary and really helping others step into their own spirituality and being a spiritual leader. And coming into the celestial shamanism and the generational earth shamanism is, I know that I have been a healer for countless of lives, and I know that I carry that wisdom within me. It's a very innate wisdom of light that comes through me. And I'm always being guided by Archangel Michael. So it really is a very powerful thing for me. And I know that I am directly connected to that lineage. So I step into that, I embody that, and I allow that to come through with my gifts and abilities as I work with beautiful souls and collaborate with them.
Well, how do you know that you come from that lineage?
Being a shaman, we travel many realms and we go into the galactic, we go into the omniverse. And for me, I'm very into the galactic, into the star lines and into the planetary systems. And I have been told in countless visions and astral projection of my knowingness, and then being confirmed by quite a few other celestial guides that I have encountered saying and stating the exact same thing. And I've had visions, I've had occurrences, apparitions happen that have really, really affirmed everything for me.
Wow, you sound like you don't have a boring life.
It's never boring. Every night when I sleep, it's some incredible experiences happening.
Wow. So, I understand that you had these gifts as a child that adults would actually come to you as a small child for life advice. Did you understand your gifts when you were young, or did they just come pouring out of you?
They just came pouring out of me. And I just remember feeling very, very receptive to energy, feeling very receptive to people's stories. I literally would look at someone and be able to really see their entire life story, and not just this lifetime, but previous lifetimes also, and what they were carried into this planetary system to really carry out in terms of their sacred purpose. So it was always something that came to me. I didn't understand that I was different. I had this burning feeling inside of me that I was being called to serve, and I didn't really understand what that was going to look like or what that was. And I remember my mom as a small child, I was like a 5-year-old child, and adults were coming to me and they were seeking guidance, and they were literally telling me and sharing their whole life story with me and asking for guidance. Like, what do you think I should do? What choice do you think I should make? And I was like, oh, like, I just thought it was normal because that was just what I was doing. And I carried that into my life and, into my careers. And I was always guiding people. I was always mentoring. I was always, being that sounding board and just being able for them to have that self-reflection. And it was just such a powerful thing. And I remember trying to resonate with like family and friends, like, do you have this burning feeling that you're being called to serve? And they're like, oh no, like, I know I want to be like a lawyer or a doctor. And I'm like, well, that's amazing. But it was something deeper than that. It was like this undeniable fire. It was like this knowingness, but not fully understanding everything that was being given or channeled to me. So I just kind of went through life and I didn't suppress it, but I was just trying to like not think about it so much because I wasn't resonating with anyone on my path. And I went through countless trials and tribulations throughout my life. And it wasn't until my first near-death experience that I really came to that realization, like, okay, like, you're doing what you think you should do, what everybody told you should be doing with your life, but are you actually in alignment? Are you actually fulfilling yourself in that burning desire that's inside of you, telling you to do something, to shift something, to serve?
Wow, that is phenomenal. And I've had other guests here who have had abilities when they were really, really young, and like you, they didn't know it wasn't unusual. They thought it was normal that everybody can do it. And at some point, I mean, as probably maybe when you got to be a teenager, you started to realize that, oh, well, I have some gifts other people don't.
Yeah. And it was so funny. I would always think about the weather. I would always think about things and hoping that they would, work to my benefit. And for some reason, everything always did. And I didn't understand that I was actually being in that creative process of letting that flow through with the universe. But I just remember thinking with, my friends that I had, I never clicked in that sense of that profoundness. It was not that they were superficial, but the connection was superficial because I wasn't able to actually speak to the depth of who I was without feeling like perhaps I would be judged or they just really wouldn't understand me. So everyone that I would, really connect with on my journey, they were always like, you're such a deep soul, you're a wise soul. Like, there's no superficial conversations here. I want to have the conversations that matter. I want to understand how life works. Why are we here? So I always had those deep questions, and I never had someone that countered that or that was able to kind of engage me in those conversations in that dialect.
Yeah, so there was no casual conversation. Hey, did you see that ball game last night?
No, and I like having a little bit of small talk, but I like having very
Yeah.
profound talk because to me that is the purpose why we're here. We're here to learn, we're here to master, we're here to understand ourselves, we're here to serve one another. And that was always something that was inside of me, and I needed to explore that. I needed to understand that curiosity was good and that it was safe to do so. However, I just didn't feel that way when I was a teenager. I think most teenagers don't feel that way. And it wasn't until I had, again, like that first near death experience where it it was like this catalyst moment that really awakened me to like, you say you're happy because you're a very positive person. You say that you love your life, but do you really? Do you love the relationship you're in? Do you love the career that you're doing? Is it serving you? And that really brought me into this rabbit hole of really discovering what was my truth. What were the lies that I felt that I was living? What were the labels and the identities that I was given that I was living in that really weren't mine to own?
Mhm. And you know, one more question about your when you were young, did your family accept your gifts, or did they try to, like, shove it in the background? I know that's very important because family influence is so strong.
It really is. And I think my parents just didn't understand because they're still very linear. They're still like, to them, like I'm very spiritual and I'm very like, to them, they're like, I don't really understand everything that you do, but we understand in a sense, like from what you tell us. But I think for them, it was just like my mom was just awestruck, and she was like, you should be like, as a small child, like all your friends come to you, adults come to you, like you're at the grocery store, someone's sharing their whole life story with you, She's like, you should really be like trying to support me and saying, I see your gifts. Maybe you should be a psychologist or a counselor, because that to them, like that's all they knew was like maybe 30 different careers in that given moment. So it was like that just didn't speak resonance with me. That didn't speak, to be my truth. And I explored that a little bit when I worked at the cancer center, and it just wasn't something that I was there for. I didn't want to band-aid people's issues. I really wanted to be able to solve them with them. I wanted to be able to guide them to solve them, to remove those roots, and not have, you know, really to need years of therapy and years of coping mechanisms in order to actually work through it, but to actually work through it in the now moment, and that be their continual practice moving forward.
And I like the way you describe that they are more linear. And, unfortunately, most of the people of the world are entrained in a 3D world, and they look at it in a linear aspect, and they don't understand. But that's your mission here, to move their perspective to the horizontal and see, well, actually the vertical, I'm sorry, not the horizontal. And that is awesome. But I didn't realize that you've experienced an NDE, a near-death experience, or more than one. What happened?
Yeah, I experienced 4 near-death experiences. The first one, we were driving on some beautiful wintry, snowy roads here in Canada, and we were going skiing, and we were traveling on a very unfamiliar backcountry highway. And it was like a terrible, terrible snowstorm. There was at least 2 feet, 3 feet of snow that had accumulated on the ground. And as we were traveling, all of a sudden in the road, it was like this 90-degree cut. One side was a rock cliff, the other side was the cliff. And what ended up happening is the snow compacted against the guardrail and acted as a ramp. And as we were coming around the corner, and I had a feeling the previous night to not go, like I wanted to cancel, but having these identities of being the nice girl syndrome, didn't want to let anybody down, didn't want to, put somebody in a position where I wasn't being a woman of my word. I was like, I am just going to do this. And so I had that feeling. Even when I woke up, I was in my vehicle, and I had this crystal angel pendulum that was gifted to me by one of my cancer patients. And I usually always feel her before I commute. And it was just like this really off feeling. It was this really eerie feeling. And I was like, oh, like push it down. Like you got to get here. Like he's waiting for you. And so anyways, I got there, and as we were driving, it was like, I just had this overwhelming feeling like we are going to get into a bad accident today. Like I just knew it. And I didn't want to vocalize that to him and then put it in his head. So then I kept it to myself. But as soon as we started coming around that bend, I was like, holy man, like we are going over the cliff. Like I didn't even think we were going to hit the rock cut. I'm like, we're going over the cliff, like the way that the roads were, the momentum of the car, and sure enough, that's what we did. And we went over this cliff, and we landed on a frozen lake. And it was very traumatizing to the body. The body went into a natural state of shock. And thankfully, we were okay, but everything in the vehicle was a write-off. Everything was damaged except for me, him, and this beautiful crystal pendulum that was gifted to me. And people had saw the accident like as we were like midair, and this truck came up to us, and he's like, oh my goodness, like I was so scared what I was going to drive up on, because like you guys were like Dukes of Hazzard, like you were midair when I like was coming around the bend. And the police officer said, like everybody else that gets called, like it's a very known area to have these types of accidents. And he's like, every other call, like it's dead on arrival, or they're dead on the way to the hospital. And he's like, I'm just so thankful that you guys are alive. And it was just such a riveting moment, like a shaking to your core moment, that it just, your whole life flashes behind, like before your eyes, right? You're visioning your kids, you're visioning your life, and you're just trying to make sense of everything. And you're in fear, right? You're in fear that you're going to not be here in that next moment. So it was just such a catalyst moment for me. And as like the police officer was like doing his investigation, he saw like that our vehicle was already tilted to the left as we were ramped up on the guardrail, as he was following like our vehicle tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, technically, he's like, you should have flipped right on the roof, or you should have rolled onto the lake. He's like, I don't understand how you landed on all four tires. And as they were sweeping the vehicle out with this massive boom truck out of the lake, because the vehicle started going through the lake, it's a 1-ton vehicle hitting ice at a fast momentum. It was like when they were doing this sweep out, we literally had missed hitting a massive rock boulder by 2 millimeters. And if we would have landed on that, we would have been crushed on impact.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So it was just like all these eye-opening experiences, like just with the words that they were saying and everything that was happening in that moment. And that really had pivoted the way that I thought that I should be living my life, opposed to how I really wanted to live my life. So that was that moment where I really decided to step into my own embodiment, my own truth, and to really start following where I'm being guided.
It sounds like your guardian angels put some overtime in that day.
And it's funny because like I had a glass water bottle in the vehicle. It smashed, like it was like into pieces. And the only thing, like the crystal angel, it's crystal, it hit like the windshield, and it was still perfectly fine. No nicks, no nothing on it. And I was like, oh my goodness, that guy, the police officer was like, you need to bring that into all your vehicles. He's like, I don't believe in moo things, but he's like, you should really keep that angel.
Wait, you said you had more than one NDE?
Yeah, I had 3 NDEs shortly after, within a 2-year span, and I was hemorrhaging to death on 3 different occasions, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. They couldn't resolve the issue. It was surgery after surgery. And then finally, with my own healing, with the way that I was feeling about my body, I was just really trying to pivot things. And finally, I had an incredible doctor who really understood what was happening and was able to help me. But it was 6 months of torture, because I never recuperated after that for almost 2.5 years, just because I had lost such a significant amount of blood on 3 different occasions.
Wow. You're too young and healthy to have all those issues. Stop that.
I'm like, I'm done now. I'm awake now. I know what I'm supposed to do. We don't need this anymore.
Like that.
Fully present.
Well, just going on again with all your amazing abilities. Now, I see that you actually have trained with an elder shaman, and that you discovered you have an indigenous lineage. How the heck did this all come about?
Yeah, so I'm actually Indigenous. So here in Canada, I'm part of a culture that is Native American and French, and we call it a Métis culture here. And I've known this ever since I was a little girl, that we were part of this culture, but it wasn't something that we really spoke about, just with the history of Canada, everything that has transpired, the reconciliations that have transpired, the stigmatization that has happened with our culture, that if you didn't look of it Indigenous descent, you didn't want to claim that you were, because you were scared and you were fearful of how the community would view you, how the government would view you. There was just so many repercussions that came with it. And it wasn't something that my family really wanted to speak about, especially my grandparents, because it was a very sensitive topic, because a lot of this happened in their era. And I went through life, the first near-death experience. And after my last near-death experience, I was being called by a dream for almost 4 months straight. And this beautiful Indigenous woman was coming to me in my dream, and she was standing in front of this ravina, and her arms were extended to me. And beside her, there were teepees right beside her. And as her arms were extended to me, she kept chanting me this beautiful, melancholy song. And the connection I felt to her was like of my maternal grandmother, great grandmother. And I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain how much love I felt for her in that dream. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd start chanting it around the house. And my partner was like, wow, that's a really beautiful song. I said, this is what she sings to me every single night.
Oh,
And he was like, wow. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. I do dream interpretations. I see she's showing me the land. I've never seen this land before. So like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. And I ended up connecting with one of our elders in our tribal community, in our Métis tribal community, who is a shaman. And I was telling him of my dream. And he's like, she's calling you to the land. And for those that are listening, our elders carry the wisdom. They carry our traditions. They carry the plant medicines. They carry everything. They carry the wisdom within them. So we have very high regard for our elders. And as I was speaking to him, he was like, oh yeah, like he's like, she's calling you to the land. Like she's calling you to come and heal. You're meant to be a healer. And I'm like, meant to be a healer? Like, excited, nervous. Like, I'm like, what am I doing with this information? Like, what do I do? Where do I go? Like, where do I go and heal? Like, he's like, it will come to you in vision. I'm like, oh my goodness. He's like, it'll come to you in dream state. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, what am I doing with this information? And I started to chant the song that she was chanting to me every night. And he took a step back and he's like, oh my goodness. He's like, that song hasn't been heard in healing circles for over 100 years. He's like, my great grandfather used to chant that to me before bed, but never in the form of healing circle, because his great grandfather and his grandfather were all shamans as well. And he's like, but it's almost like she customized it to you. Like it's a different rendition. It's not the exact same, but the melody is very much the same. And I was like, oh my goodness, goosebumps all over. Like, what am I doing with this information? And again, like it was going to come to me in vision. So I was like, oh my goodness. Like I left there really curious, overwhelmed, a little nervous, excited all at the same time. And it didn't come to me in vision for quite a bit of time. I still kept having the dream. And I ended up meeting with this incredible celestial guide shortly after. And there was no connection with her and the elder of my tribal community. And I was telling her of my dream, and she said, she's calling you to the land. I said, yes. She's calling me to the land. She said, yeah, she's calling you to the land to come and heal. I said, yes. She said, you're meant to be a shaman. And I'm like, a shaman? Like, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? Where do I start? I've never even heard of this before. I know that we have healers, but we never refer to them as shamans. Those were just our healers, our doctors. I'm like, what am I doing with this information? Again, she was like, it will come to you in vision. So I was like, okay, I guess I just have to be patient. Google's not going to help me out here. No Google-licious here. And the last night that I had my dream, I woke up in the morning and I told my partner, I said, listen, I said, I'm being called to the land. I can't explain to you why, but I just need to go and heal. And he was very supportive. He's like, yes, absolutely. Go do what you need to do. And it's pouring rain outside. And he's like, okay, wait, you're going in the forest in the pouring rain with, wolves and bears, which we have here in Northern Ontario. He's like, please bring something for my sanity to know that you're safe. So, I just wanted to reassure him. So I did, but I really felt protected in that moment. And I get into my vehicle and I'm listening to this ancient Indigenous song that I've listened to since I was a little girl. And it's like these floodgates had opened. It was like all these emotions were coming out. I was releasing so many built up tears, so much almost like that anger, but it was really transmuting itself into tears. And it was like I was reconnecting to my emotions. I was reconnecting to my soul just in this drive. Like it was just really powerful. I had suppressed so much of my emotions of being the strong girl and being strong for my children as I went through, a separation and I left with my 3 beautiful children. There was just so much had happened in my life, so many trials and tribulations, just as so many trials and tribulations happen in everyone's lives. And I just never allowed myself to feel. I always wanted to be strong like my mom. And, you don't cry, you keep going, and you put a smile on your face and you just keep trucking. But it had its toll, and it was taking, it was really a price to pay for it. And when I got into that vehicle, it was like this instant release that was happening. And it was just so relieving in that moment to actually just let my emotions flow through. It was like a really, ugly, deep cry for like over 2 hours that I was making this commute. And I just remember when I got to the land, I was like, okay, like I'm here. And these lands are known ancient, indigenous healing grounds. And I'm walking into the space, and it's like a 15-minute to 20-minute trek in. And I come across, and there's like this beautiful rock. And I'm like, and it's like facing this cliffside, and it's just so beautiful, like just stunningly beautiful. And I was like, I'm going to heal here. I need to heal here. And I started unpacking all of my smudging tools. And for those that may not know, smudging here, we burn white sage, we burn cedar, we can burn, wild tobacco, which we call sema. And it's like an offering in order to cleanse our energy and just to be able to be grounded in the space in the now. And I'm doing this smudging ceremony on the rock, and I'm like reconnecting as I'm looking to this cliffside. It's like it's telling me all of the land's history and vision. And it's like I'm reconnecting to my ancestry, like of the indigenous lineage. And it was so powerful. And it was like this knowingness that was coming through me. I was like, I know what I'm here to do. Like, I know what I'm meant to do. And it was like I was stripping away these layers in that moment. And it was like I was getting to the authenticity of who I was. I was getting to the profoundness of who I was. It was like stripping away the superficialness that I thought life was. And it was like showing me the visions of what life really was. And all of a sudden, a deer, a bunny, a chipmunk comes out of the forest. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm just in awe. And this little chipmunk is like hanging out beside me on the rock, and like they're super friendly, but I'm like, I'm out here, like I got no food. And he was just like hanging out. I was like, okay, well, like hang out, you can hang out with me. And I'm just crying because like it was like this reconnection to the animal kingdom. It was like a reconnection to the elements. I was there with the wind. I was there with the earth. I was by the body of water, and I had fire in front of me from the smudging ceremony. It was just super powerful. And it was just like this full reconnection that was happening. And as I'm like looking up, I noticed this little hummingbird, and it's like she's flying from like treetop to treetop, treetop to treetop. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, it's pouring rain. Like I've never seen a hummingbird flying in the pouring rain. Like I've seen them out here in the north when it's drizzling, but not when it's heavy rain like that. And I was like, well, maybe she has a nest, like, somewhere in the tree, but no, like she was literally just going treetop to treetop, like hovering right over me, treetop to treetop. And as I'm looking up, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, it's pouring rain. I'm sitting on this rock. There's trees around this rock. There's no enclosure over this rock. Not one single drop of rain hit me the entire time that I was sitting on this rock. I was bone dry. Wow. And even when I came home, my partner was like, how are you dry? And I said, literally, not one single drop of rain hit me the entire time that I was there. And that rock was moist when I sat on it. Yeah. Like I had like a mat, and I was sitting on it, and it was moist. So it did capture some type of rain, or I don't know, like fall off from the tree, but I literally had not one single drop of rain hit me the entire time that I was there. And it was like this moment that everything had shifted for me. It was like I understood. I had this knowingness. It was like this unwavering sense of knowingness and of inner peace. And it has been there since that moment. And I just remember leaving. I was like, if I can do this, help someone go through this, then I know I'm a healer, that I know that I'm here to guide others to heal themselves. So, after that moment, I came home, and I was super excited. And obviously, like I was on a cloud nine. I was super like on a natural high from it. And I was asking family and friends, like, you guys want to come on this healing journey with me? And they were like, oh, what? I'm like, a healing journey. And they're like, yeah, you know what? Let's try it. And everyone that came on this journey with me was never the same. They really had their own form of awakening, and their life had pivoted for them in their highest self and their, more of that positive sense of what was actually fulfilling them opposed to what wasn't. And once I did that, I was like, okay, it was like an affirmation for myself that I am here to guide others to heal. And now it's time to step into that embodiment. And that's when I started offering it to others.
Wow, what a phenomenal story of reawakening to that. That is just amazing. I've had just recently, again, she's been on my show twice, shaman, Terry Hummingbird, and she's had experiences with hummingbirds. Now, her shamanism was trained in Peru, in the Amazon. And of course, what I find beautiful is shamans actually are throughout the world in indigenous communities, and they're the elder, quote, medicine men who have the wisdom and the knowledge of the ancients. But that particular woman who appeared to you and taught you that chant, do you remember it? Are you able to do some of it for us? Or you don't?
Yeah, I do know it because it'll never leave me, but it's something I do in Sacred Circle and Healing Circle. Okay. It's just something that I call upon her in Healing Circle, but it's a very indigenous chant.
Well, that's amazing. And also going back to Carrie Hummingbird, she, like you, she utilizes tobacco in some of her ceremonies. And according to Carrie, tobacco is a very powerful healing modality in plant medicine, but you have to use it correctly because it can be very dangerous if you do it incorrectly.
That's right. And what we understand is that plant medicines are here to help heal us, but it's also to understand that we have to respect those plants as they are a gift from Mother Nature. And I would never suggest for anybody just to go and, explore with plant medicines because they do have the potentiality to be very hazardous to your health if you don't know how to utilize them in the proper way. Because wild tobacco, what we use here, sema, if it's absorbed a certain way, it can actually become a hallucinogenic. So that's not what the purpose is for it. The purpose is to be able to offer clarity, and it's like an offering to the spirits, an offering to nature. It just depends on the ceremony that is at hand. But it's to understand that everything here on this planetary system is to help us heal, and we're able to extract it in the right way, and we're able to utilize it with an honoring way of knowing how to actually practice with those herbal medicines is the most pivotal moment. And for us to be able to step into that with that expertise, because you can't just use a hallucinogenic and never have actually sat with it or understood what the plants are actually offering you, with the wisdom that they're offering you. Are you being pulled to it? Or are you just doing it forcefully because you're trying to reach spiritual attainment? Because spiritual attainment doesn't need to be attained just by hallucinogenics. It's all about connection to self. And not every shaman uses hallucinogenics. It's like they all have their own specialties. And for me, I haven't had to use it with my clients. They're able to get that clarity to reach their own spiritual attainment without having to use that. But if I needed to, I know the proper ways and how to use Mother Earth's tools, right? And how she is able to gift us this beautiful healing. So it's really about depending on who you are, how you use the plant medicines. And if you're called to do that, not all shamans are. Some of them are very specialized in the energy worlds and the quantum and the holographic. Some of them are very with the plant medicines and the animal kingdoms. It just depends on their knowledge and where they specialize in.
Wow, we are speaking with Canada's own Roxanne Chaput, a luminary, a life coach, and amazing number of abilities. And this is just great stuff. Among your other abilities that I have learned, that you speak light language. You mentioned right up front that you are connected to the galactic realm. Are you a channel? How did you come about discovering you can speak light language? And what is light language?
Absolutely. So it's definitely a language. It's definitely a channel. I am used as a channel. It's a conduit, right? Most shamans, anyone that travels the different realms is really a conduit to the information of infinite intelligence and infinite love. And we all are exactly that, right? In our soul essence, we are all perfection. And light language to me looks like coding structures, DNA codes, matrices. Sometimes I see visions of how the light hits and the spectrum of how the light works, and it tells me a message. So it's different for everyone, but this is how it comes through to me. It happens a lot when I'm in, when I'm navigating through different planetary systems. But it's almost like if you think about like little numbers, like in a hacking code or like a computer code, it looks similar to that, but I see color patterns. And then I'm able to find the connections between the color patterns to understand what the image or the vision or the word of what they're trying to explain to me. So that's what happens in that light language for me. And then a lot of the times when I draw, like I'll just start sketching, it's something that is being transmitted through me, and it all comes through light language.
Wow. And so I've had a few guests on the show have actually spoken on the show light language. Are you able to do any of that right now?
Oh, speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it comes in very anecdotal and almost like it's English verbiage, in the sense that the way that the visions are shown to me. So I'm able to just translate everything for it. And when I speak with more of like the archangel lineages, it's more of this connection of feeling. Like I feel the messages being directly put right into my chest, the light being emitted right into my chest. So it's something that we can speak to in tribe when we come to like serious, like planetary systems, like Sirius B. There's different languages that we use, just like there are different cultures up there and different cultures here. There's different cultures up there. So it just depends on what it is. So it's always like this universal light language where you're able to actually understand everything that is being transmitted to you.
It is amazing. I've had actually 12th D Ascended Master Athela coming through Christina Hill. She's from Sirius B, and have had her on my show a couple times and spoken light language and everything too. And it's interesting when I hear light language, I don't understand what it says, but I feel like I do. I just feel it. So it's very interesting. So anybody, if ever has a chance to hear somebody speak light language, it's pretty phenomenal. Now, of course, again, like I keep saying, you have an amazing array of abilities. What about you do Lemurian Reiki energy healing too? Of course, Lemuria was one of the continents that are gone off of Earth, and I believe they still exist somewhere on the planet. But how did you come about with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was all channeled information to me from a previous lifetime. And it's something that I brought in. And I know that my light and my language and the way that I do my healing modalities is very different than a lot of people. And in our circles, what I'm referred to is more of a void healer, where I can really encompass a little bit of everything in order to bring in true healing, in order to guide someone to true healing. And what this really looks like is that there is times and spaces where I remember, where I can go into this state of remembrance when we do past life regressions or anything of that nature, but it's a little bit beyond that. It's like information that is being gifted to me directly from the lineages to remember exactly what I was doing in that now moment. And it's like I know how to do it without even anyone having to say anything, without anyone having to do anything. I just naturally know what to do with just like this knowingness, without anyone having to instruct me or guide me to do it. And what I've been told is that in many journeys, in many visions, and with the countless shamans that I have met also, that we've done journeys for each other, because we have like a sister circle that we do, and we all journey for one another. And this is part of our practicing. This is part of our practicum of really understanding, how we get symbolisms for people, how we able to get messages for people. So when I was in those practices, a lot of that information was coming through to them, also was being channeled to them to give to me. So it was something that I already known, and I know exactly what was put inside of me in order to be able to share with others. So that information is just this pure knowingness, because I know that I was a high priestess in that time. I know that I had fled, and I know that I left. So this is just a knowingness. It's like this profound knowingness. When somebody clicks that, when somebody made that connection, it was like, I already knew that. in every depth of who I was. I knew that already in that now moment.
Well, I have to say, if you're not writing a book about this, you should pretty darn soon, because you have some amazing, incredible journeys and stories to tell. So I'm going to watch on the Amazon. Have you thought of writing a book about this?
So many people have kind of approached me to write a book. I don't feel like it's in this moment that I'm supposed to. And I know that I really should. I don't want my message, in a way, like, this is where I'm a little bit apprehensive, is that I don't want my message to be somebody else's message in that sense, because I believe our spirituality is our truth to ourselves. And what I say may not resonate with you. And the first thing that we understand about spirituality is that don't believe what I say, believe what you feel. And I don't really enjoy putting these ideologies that you have to do things a certain way in order to attain spirituality, but to do something based on my journeys, like a memorial or a biography or something like that, that would probably be a little bit more interesting for me to do, but I just haven't felt called to do it in the now moment.
And that's good too, because I mean, as we know, in the right way at the right time, and that will happen. Now, if they made a movie about your life, the opening scene would be you flying off a cliff in a car, and that's how the movie would start.
There we go. Maybe I'll do a movie. No. We're actually in production right now. We've just still been in talks, but we're looking at creating a film with a very incredible director of talking about the Great Awakening. So that is something that we're definitely looking forward to. And I can see the messages being brought in that regard and through that platform. I just haven't been guided to write a book. I know that I've been told that I will write a book, but I just haven't felt guided at all right now to write that.
Well, that's cool. You're going to do a movie about it. That sounds great. Keep us posted on that.
Absolutely.
I saw on your website that you do something called Illumination Retreats. What is that?
Yeah, so the Illumination Retreat is such a beautiful and transformative experience. And even though that I have the certifications, and the reason why I have these certifications was to understand our multidimensionality in every sense and every intrinsic layer of our being. So I wanted to understand our intellectual body, our mind capacity, how our mind functions, the brain's mechanisms. I wanted to understand our emotional body, how we are activated, how we are triggered, how we actually process our emotions. And then bringing into the physical body, I wanted to understand, why do we store everything in our physical body? Why do we store things at the cellular component as well as the cellular component? So for me, those certifications were to be able to guide someone to a complete, really fulsome alignment of that harmonizing of their bodies, that they can become fully aligned instead of working against one another. So that was really the all of really attaining those certifications. But this retreat is such a transformative retreat. It's really about connection to self, returning to love, returning to your love, returning to your knowingness. And as impact makers and as impact, changers, as we change the world and as we're seeing this great awakening happening, it's really important that we can come into our consciousness in a very safe and sacred place. And we wanted to be able to hit every aspect of the being. So the other global leaders that are co-creating this with me are very, really, they're the experts in their fields of either brain mechanisms, the brain and mind connection. Then we have the physical body, how we connect to our physical body and the movement of our flow. And then we come into the spiritual essence, the energetic essence. So it's really just to support anyone that is going through this journey at every intrinsic layer and giving them the knowledge on how to be able to truly come into their knowingness, truly come into their embodiment, that it actually translates in every component of their life, how it elevates their frequency and their vibration when they're coming out of a state of, living in fear, scarcity, and lack, and they're coming into a state of knowingness, love, and peace. There's different decisions, there's different choices that we make throughout our life in order for that to come into that alignment, and how we attract those things, as you know, through the law of attraction. It's not just the law of attraction. There's the law of vibration, law of correspondence. There's the law of one, there's the law of gender. law of duality, right? So there's so many components that go into the law of attraction. And when we work on our vibration, which to me is one of the biggest things, one of the most important dispositions within us, is to understand that once our vibrational alignment is to a place where we can welcome everything and we can surrender to the process and we can trust the knowingness and trust where the universe is guiding us, where the creator is guiding us, it becomes a very powerful life and a very successful life in terms of whatever success may mean to someone.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing week, a retreat. I think I saw that you have one coming up in Italy.
Yes. So we have our upcoming retreat happening from November 4th to November 11th in Lemurian, Italy this year. So we're super excited.
A beautiful setting, and I would encourage people to check out her illumination retreat. About a year and a half ago, I went on a weekend energy clearing retreat down in Florida, and it's still one of the most amazing weekends I've ever spent, and it was so well worth it. And heck, you get to go to Italy too. That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible experience. It's just, it's just going to be very wholesome. It's like I said, it's going to be life transforming. Your life will not be the same leaving this retreat. There's no way that it can be.
Yeah, especially hanging out with you with all these amazing talents. So I'm gonna ask a couple more questions, but I'm just curious. You have 4 kids. Do they know their mom is this cool?
They don't think I'm as cool as I think I'm cool. No, they actually, my oldest son, he's going to be 15 and he's just so proud of me. And every time I hear him talking like with his friends or with his teachers, or like, you should ask my mom, like how, like, to do like shamanism and do this. And like, he's like, I'm so proud of you, mom. Like, he's
Oh,
always so proud of me. And my kids are always so proud. Like when they listen to like me on the radio and they're like, that's my mom, like, it's pretty cute. Then I try to be cool for them, but I'm probably really not that cool.
I think it's cool. This is awesome. So, one other thing, very important, I asked this. Hey, you're a podcaster too, and you have your own show called Soul to Soul. How did that come up into being for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because when I started in, the speaking engagements, I was like, no, I'm not interested in having a podcast. Like I love just guesting. I love just being able to share and then just being able to leave it where it is. And there was like this gnawing feeling. It was like, you need to start your own podcast. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm starting my own podcast. Like we're doing this. And like the name came to me, everything just came to me and everything was created within like a day or two. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. I already had a lineup of guests that really wanted to come on the show. So I was like, I guess we're doing this. Like, let's kick this off. And then what I was told by spirit after I had started it was like, this was another conduit. This was another avenue that the message could get across. And I was like, I now understand. But at that moment, I just had a little piece of the puzzle. I didn't understand the bigger picture. And it was funny because the connections that I was making were the connections that are actually the other retreat leaders that are co-facilitating the retreat with me. So I was like, everything happens as it is intended, so long as we trust and we go into that knowingness, not understanding the full picture ahead.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same way this show came about. I mean, we follow our purpose. We just know this is what we're supposed to do, and there's a deeper, more expanding purpose on why you have that show, why I have World Awakenings. But I'm sure they can find it just like my show on YouTube and all the other audio outlets. Soul to Soul with Roxanne Chaput, and that is definitely awesome. So. One last thing. So you have a website, and how can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone can connect with me through my website at roxannechaput.com. And you can always connect with me through social media under that exact name. I'm on every platform. And also, if you want to check out the illuminationretreat.com, you can also find us on there and what we do and why we do it.
Well, I would definitely urge people to connect with her. I, of course, will put those links down in the show notes with us so everybody can connect with you that way. And Roxanne, you are just amazing. I'm just in awe. I mean, what you do and the beautiful, loving things that you have grabbed a hold of your abilities to help illuminate the world and the people who come in contact with you. And thank you so much for being on World Awakenings today.
Thank you, Carl. I really feel that in my heart. And I want to say thank you for being incredible and for being you and for being able to bring this beautiful platform for others to be able to hear other stories. And should they feel resonance, I think that is what the power of these words are.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.